We should be up and running. Up and running. Alright, are we up and running? Are we up and running? Okay. We should be going by pretty good, but I'm just going to make sure that... Okay, let me refresh the page here. Alright, testing, testing. Okay. We should be going by pretty good. Okay, that should do the trick. Hello everybody, Grant here. Before I change the screen itself, though, I need to quickly, and I'm just going to let me get my maybe should I go with relaxation music or something that won't get this stream copyright claimed. So let's see here. Actually, I know it would be quite fitting. Just give me a moment. Okay, let's see here. But I don't use an ad blocker, so I'm going to try and play something that's pretty fitting. I'm going to play probably something the soundtrack for one of the one of the Ben 10 games, perhaps. Something like, again, not the console versions, because that would probably get me claimed, but most likely one like the DS versions, you know, that has almost Genesis sounding type of music. I think that would really work well for this. Minus the main theme and cutscene theme, because those wait, these are really all that short? Okay, yeah, they cannot be that short. Hold on. Let's see what we can try here. Where is it? Ah, here we are. Let's see here. Or maybe the Vilgax Attacks one? That actually is that one I have some good memories of. Which one to choose? one? Challenge or Hoover Dam from the DS version. How's this one sound? One moment. How's the Hoover Dam one sound? Oh, this is one I have so much nostalgia of. Yeah, I think we have a winner here. Hopefully this won't get the stream claimed. I mean, it's just it's from an old DS game. I'll be fine. Yep, I think we got ourselves a winner here. Or maybe... Actually, let's change it up for now. Let's stick with the challenge one, actually. Yeah, so after much delays, we are finally here with this. On this live stream, I will be ranking, in order of their appearance throughout the series within the classic continuity, every single Ben 10 Omnitrix transformation that happens to be canon to the classic continuity, going from the original series from 2005 all the way up to Omniverse. And no, I'm not going to. This will not include any of the transformations from the 2016 to 2021 reboot, because that I have not yet seen. So, now, to be fair, I've not seen all of Omniverse in full yet, but I have been catching up. I've just recently finished Season 5, and now in Season 6, watching the Rooters arc. And so on. So, yeah, with that out of the way, yeah. Also, I'm actually able to live stream this from, like, some beach house right now, and I'm sitting here on a mattress, and, like, my legs crossed, and it gets pretty uncomfortable after a while, I'm not gonna lie, but I can endure it, it's fine. So, yeah. I do still want to see the 2016 reboot, but since I haven't yet, I don't think it'd be really fair to include the likes of Gax, Surge, Slapback, I think is what it was called, or whatever, and one more. Overflow, yeah. But since I have not yet seen the reboots, I won't be including them. That and this tier maker template I found include them anyways. So with this being made by Danielle M. Wrong from Twitter, or X, so big thanks to this person for creating this tier list maker. I changed the categories here, and because I'm ranking these in terms of my overall favorites over the years, so It's Hero Time is, of course, some of my big all-time favorites. I'm a pretty big fan, slightly before that, but I really do enjoy seeing them on screen and such in action, so I'm casually like a little bit before that into like oh, that's cool. That is actively disliking something here, or the transformations that I just really am not. I'm basically feeling like, ugh, great, it's them. Whenever I see them on screen or whatever, and Just Snow is the ones I legitimately outright hate, which is very few and far in between. But we'll get to them. Trust me, we will get to them. And such, and I'll be trying, like, these are all my personal favorites. I'm judging them on how much I like them and my personal favorites, though I will grant the other factors into consideration out of respect for each of the transformations, such as how much of an impact they've had on, like, Ben 10 lore, mythos, fanbase, and so on, but those will be very minor factors, and how much I like them overall will be much more of the deciding factor, because I'm ranking them based on my favorites, so which ones are my favorites, or at least which ones I have, along with a little bit of how much respect I've had for each one, in a way. You get what I'm saying? Alright, that's good. So we'll be starting off with the classic series with Ben's Pyronite Sword, E-Blast. E-Blast to me, like, I know he's a fan favorite. I've never been a huge fan myself because of E-Blast, because, like, he's just basically a fire rock monster, and the design rarely ever changed throughout the series. To be fair, like, it is still a pretty good design, only back in Classic, for instance, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I feel like, I'm on the side of, like, Ben's Omnitrix transformations should almost always have, like, a bit of an outfit with them. Similar to what we saw in, like, Classic Series and Omniverse. I nowadays really hated how Ultimate Alien Force left a lot of Ben's Omnitrix transformations basically naked. Now, to be fair, not all of them were. Like, Forearms, for instance, of course, got, like, some green myth-type garb or whatever, and Diamond Head was given the quote-unquote Chromostone onesie and so on, but I can kind of see what they were trying to do with the designs in the UAF there, but I personally feel like it gives it connects each of the transformations more to Ben himself if he has, like, that little, you know, classic green or white and black uniform to speak of. Now, to be fair, you could definitely make the argument with Heat Blast, he doesn't really need that, and, like, he might just burn through it with her outfit, but this is the Omnitrix we're talking about. Level 20 tech in the Ben 10 lore, at least in terms of the classic continuity, and, like, they could have at least given Heat Blast some, like swim trunks with the Omnitrix badge placed on there. I feel like that would have been an easy deal, and kind of clever too, because he's a fire alien. It's pretty hot, so like on hot days, beaches, swim trunks. I thought it'd be kind of ironic yet clever at the same time, but Heat Blast, he's basically the go-to fire alien. It's Ben's Power Knight form, and I do respect Heat Blast a lot for how iconic he is. Another thing I wanted to mention as well before I started ranking these, I should have mentioned them as well. For those who know my VTuber lore and such, and how my VTuber OC and such is basically like a parody version of myself akin to SMG4, where that's like with Mario crossover and such. Mine's more akin to Ben 10, Wild Kratts, and those stuff, crossovers type stuff. Now, I'm not going to really bring the lore of that into here too much in terms of how much I like the aliens, even though it did play somewhat of a factor in terms of like my own Omnitrix type roster. It's complicated. Again, my VTuber, the way it's mainly a whole parody of, it's a whole OC parody in a similar style to SMG4, so keep that in mind. But back to what we were talking about here, Heat Blast, I'm going to rank him in. Again, like, I know, like, these rankings and such, like, they're kind of vague in terms, like, I'm doing this mainly for fun, and at the say Skyline stream, I try to do some plus, so, yeah. Although I'm long, I'm doing okay. I'm much better now, after the surge. I had my mood list of teeth recently removed, but it's been over half a week, like, several days since then. I've gotten a lot better. Like, it still hurts to open my mouth pretty wide, but I do have a bad tangle sore on my tongue. I know too much information, but overall, I'm doing a lot better now. Yeah, it's just a little uncomfortable for me having to sit with my legs crossed on this mattress, but the way things are set up right now, in this temporary setup, this is the best I can kind of do, but yeah. Also, I forgot to bring my pop filter from home, so that's why if you hear a lot of, like, if my mic audio sounds odd, that's one of the reasons, along with the possible echoes and reverbs in this room. Actually, let me check a look at the street review for that. Right now, it's temporary setup. It's the best I can kind of do, but okay, yeah, just to be safe, I'm going to raise my mic volume all the way up. Alright, back to this. And please tell me if the audio sounds good on your end, if there's good audio bouncing and everything there. Alright, okay, so, going back to Heat Blast, I casually like him. He, also, another thing is that the further to the left, on these charts, further to the left, actually, one moment, please. Yeah, okay, yeah, but basically, like, the further to the left each of these transformations are on the tier, the more I like him within that tier. So, for example, if Gray Matter is ranked above Heat Blast on the same tier for some reason, I like Gray Matter more than Heat Blast in that case. So, think of it like that. Yeah. But yeah, Heat Blast will go into that tier there. Wild Mutt is a very similar situation where I overall I'm gonna put him into a little bit above Heat Blast. I think Walnut is very creative in the fact that he basically uses some form of, like, a smell echolocation hybrid in a sense. And the fact that the Vulpamancers are still meant to be, like, sapient creatures, like sapients with, like, almost human-level intellect, still I think is a very smart choice. It gives Walnut, makes him feel like a lot more like gives him a lot more of a xenobiology feel to me, personally, than his design actually entails. Like, he's just a big old dogwood alien. But I think the fact alone that, you know, he has a non-humanoid design, and doesn't even have eyes, and sees, sort of speak in a different way, I think that really does elevate him for me. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna raise him up to a pretty big fan for that reason. Diamond Head, it's hero time. Obviously, like, he's one of my personal favorites. Probably in the top 5 of the entire IP. I mean, sure, the design's humanoid, but when you're a giant, like, crystal rock creature, I think you can get away with that and such. I know many of these guys are meant to be humanoids for toy sales, which is a rant for another day, but, you know, like, Diamond Head's, you know, debut and then there were 10, like, his debut is easily the best of the first 4 been used in that pilot. You know, the way Ben was able to experiment with his powers to take down that giant Vilgax drone was great. The only issue I have with that scene was that, like, Gwen was just standing right in the way of that tree. Basically, was practically waiting for Diamond Head to come and basically save Gwen from the tree, which, you know, Gwen just moved out of the way of that falling tree. But, yeah. And such. Oh, also, Walnut and Diamond Head's designs. I didn't mind the shoulder pad Walnut had in Classic. It's just that, you know, it should have went all the way around the upper arm, I guess, because then what's holding it in place. I didn't mind the chromosome onesie Diamond Head had in UAF. I do prefer him to, of course, wear clothes instead. I think Omniverse's 16-year-old Diamond Head is my favorite look of the bunch. It just looks really sleek and fitting of, like, the Omniverse Omnitrix and how advanced it is in the days of the original prototype Omnitrix Classic. So, I think, like, the Derek J. Widener style for, like, Omniverse really suits Diamond Head too. So, yeah. You know, in Diamond Head, he's like a shapeshifter, but he's not like the generic, like, kind where, you know, oh, he's like a giant ball, like a living plate or that guy made of clay or whatever. No, he's made like shifting rocks and such. It kind of reminds me of, like, I can't remember what they're called, but they're kind of crystal used in, like, the creation of plaster. That, like, when kept beneath boiling or warm water, they expand in size and such. Like, basically, like, Diamond Head's basically a living, glowing crystal lab. Now I think about it, and, you know, like, those crystal lab kits that people played with as kids. Like, Diamond Head's basically that, but given, like, a human body, and that's great. So, yeah, I have to definitely put him there. Accelerate. I'd say I put him below Walnut. Pretty big fan. I do love how sleek the design is. He has the helmet and such. Like, many people, I know Accelerate was based off, like, the stereotypical designs for Velociraptors in pop culture, but I kind of feel like Accelerate's almost Pachycephalosaur-like with the way his helmet is. You know, and similar to Pachycephalosaurus' dome and such. I feel like it's kind of a little odd that, I mean, it's definitely very, I love, like, the fact that he has wheels on his feet. You know, like, it basically has rollerblades on his feet, and it has a very sleek design in the sense that, you know, Accelerate's design really hasn't changed much aside from switching out the white for green in Omniverse for Team Ben, so I'm not going to talk too much there about it there. I'm not going to bring the Ben 10,000 designs into this too much because we're talking mainly about Prime Ben. But, yeah, Accelerate, you know, great. He had awesome showings of speed, and he has a very, you know, like, he has a lot of, how should I say, like, I think, you know, especially with the voice acting, like Jim Ward his raspy accelerate voice really, I think fit accelerate very well. No offense to your Rosenthal, but I'm not really a fan of his accelerate and Omniverse. Like, I feel like, Jim Ward's delivery just made him sound a lot more alien and fitting of Ben 10. So, yeah, there is that, accelerate. I don't like to use dumb modern slang like horror farming or whatever it's called, but I do like how should I say this? Hold on, I'm just going to real quick. Alright, this should do it. Okay, so, yeah, that would basically be accelerate in my opinion. It's hard for me to say much more about accelerate, it just has, especially the blue. I think it's just that the color scheme is also great, the blue and black. It really, I think it kind of like, I can't put my finger on it, but you know what I'm saying. Gray Matter, pretty big fan. I like how Gray Matter was used a good deal in Classic, at least early on, especially in episode Hunted, where it taught Ben to be more strategic rather than using brute force in the fights. How Gray Matter was used in the climax of that episode, along with some other episodes too, and how even though Gray Matter was ultimately a result of his transformations in Classic, how Ben was able to use Gray Matter to get out of those sticky situations like episodes like Go to Reach Out and Be Afraid to Dart. It's stuff like that really does elevate Gray Matter for me. Actually, I'm not sure what place it on. Well, yeah, as a pop-up, pretty big fan, because I think, right is not always right, and it really does have a good sense of how, it basically... Hold on, I'm changing my position real quick. Alright. This should be a little better. Let me just, Oh yeah, this should be a little bit better for the stream. So, let me just, give me a moment real quick. That's better. Okay, so... Alright, we should be good. Alright, so now with that out of the way, now we're back to this. Yeah, Gray Matter, also its designs in both Classic and Omniverse are really good. I really like, especially the sort of almost like lab worker suit they give to Team Ben's Gray Matter. I was not a fan of how UAF also had the Omnitrix badge on the chest all the time, no matter what. It really doesn't fit Gray Matter, in my opinion, especially if it's right at the center of the chest. Maybe if it was on one of the pecs, similar to Classic Diamond Head, I'd be fine with that. But overall, I do think it works best for the Omnitrix badge to be on the back. So yeah, I'll put Gray Matter there. Forms. Easily it's hero time. For a similar reason that Gray Matter's placed here, I'm placing Forms here, as well as due to just sheer nostalgia. I mean, back in the day, admit it, you all loved Forms because he was a big strength alien, and you loved seeing the bad guys being pummeled into the dust with brute force. Admit it. And I think Forms always had a design that just clicked for me. Classic is obvious. The Ultimate Alien Forms took some warming up to get used to. The ponytail is an odd choice, especially, but the rest of it, with that sort of the golden straps and bracelets, kind of reminds me of Greek Olympians and ancient Greek Olympians and such, which is a neat choice for Ultimate Alien Forms. Personally, I would have, I'm not sure what I would have tried for that. But I do give credit to how that was basically used as a template for the Tetramans in Omniverse with characters like Princess Luma and such. Especially so, and I even really like Team Ben forms in Omniverse with like the tank top and like the mustache and such, and the fact that like I think it does. I mean, teenagers do start. I mean, humans themselves grow facial hair when they become teenagers and such, and like I feel like it's kind of a natural evolution for the teenage forms in Omniverse in that sense, but it's something about it just clicks for me. And I also love how I like how the Omniverse teenage forms has more like the spikes, especially on the head and such, show a bit of age. They probably should have started showing the veins too as a reference to Ben 10,000, but again, forms just has that feel of basically it's just enough details to make him look like a stereotypical Hollywood alien, but also enough to stand out at the same time. So yeah, there's that. Yeah. Stinkfly. I'm going to say... meh. I mean, Stinkfly... I'll put a below heat black and casually like. Because, I mean, Stinkflies... I think, it doesn't really make much use of, like, the powerful tail stinger or whatever and such. But I do like how... one thing I do love about Stinkfly nowadays, especially, is design, which is the less humanoid, the better, in my opinion, at times, where, yeah, he still looks like he can still fight. Stinkfly has a very insectoid build, but looks just human enough, Yeah. And I might need to start powering through some of these because I don't want the stream to go on for too long, but... Stinkfly, was never one of my favorites when I was younger, but he's someone who I can casually see and say, yeah, that's Stinkfly, alright. Actually, I'll go with that. And I don't hate Stinkfly. I don't even dislike him. I just think there are cooler aliens than Second Fly. If that's the way to say it. Ripjaws. I never got why they something I don't understand is that in Ben 10 lore, also, the designs of Stinkfly are always fine to me. I'm glad they put the Omnitrix badge on the head. And, well, actually, it does distract the eye stalks, though, so part of me can almost see why you have had Stinkfly's badge on the chest, but yeah. But moving on to Ripjaws. Ripjaws has a... I feel like Ripjaws is... it's just something I should mention in, Ben 10 lore with the Omnitrix, is that the Omnitrix is capable of, generating, the needed life support for each Omnitrix form. Or it should be, at least. It's capable of generating stuff like NRG Soup, for instance. Stuff like NRG Soup, or Brainstorm's Breathing Brace. So why in the hell did Ripjaws never get a water respirator or a small water tank around his neck so he could breathe on land? Or at least breathe for longer. That never made... I never got why they never fixed that issue. Classic or Omniverse or anything like that. And that's probably why Ripjaws is so underutilized. I really like the design. It's kind of humanoid, but... Also, although something I never really understood either is that, how do Ripjaws' legs turn into that tail when he's underwater? Is it like a Little Mermaid reference or something? Or it's just almost meant to be magical in, sci-fi terms? I never really understood it, so... Actually, I'm pretty sure there's probably some answer from the crew, but... I'll place him above Stinkfly, but... I'll put him actually below Stinkfly. Upgrade, though. I would definitely say it's Hero Time. Right at the top. My favorite of the original 10. He's a living blob that can merge with technology and literally upgrade it. There is so much you can do with that move. You can definitely tell Plastic had a fun time doing that. Destroy all aliens, which I finally got around to seeing a day or two ago. Say what you will about the movie, but they definitely did a good job of Upgrade with that. Especially the animation of Upgrade, you know. It's probably my favorite design of Upgrade, period. Like, he just looks like he's made for CGI in a sense. Omniverse Upgrade also looks great, aside from the Omnitrix badge being on his face. Because how are you going to use the eye laser then? But the rest, it looks great. You know, Upgrade just had, like, again, he's a shapeshifter. He's a shapeshifter. He's basically it's kind of like living Play-Doh, but replace the dough with nanites, and he can merge the technology and upgrade it. I'm usually more of a fan of the biological tech aliens, but this is an exception to the rule there. I just love how upgrade technology is very useful. Like, this is how you'd, like, this is probably one of my favorite depictions of, like, artificial life forms come to life and such in fiction out there. You know, Upgrade, Ben's galvanic mechamorph form is awesome. Obviously. Ghost Freak. I place him, I'd say, above Diamond Head, then it's Hero Time. So, yeah. Yeah, Ghost Freak's also one of my favorites. I love the arcs they had with him, how he escaped the Omnitrix, and the twist involving the scare in the original series. One thing I never got, though, is why Ben never accidentally transformed or mistransformed into Ghost Freak in Season 4 Classic. Because at the end, near the end of Season 3, specifically at the end of Be Afraid of the Dark, Ben actually got Ghost Freak back, but the silhouette on the Omnitrix showed Ghost Freak's, you know, the scare's silhouette, not the typical Ghost Freak silhouette. So, and like, Ben and nobody on his team, like Wonder Max, really knew how to, like, add, like, any safeguards into the Omnitrix, or, like, into the Omnitrix or such, unlike, say, Alien X in the Ultimatrix and Ultimate Alien or something. So, with Ghost Freak, like, I never knew why. They never explained why, you know, Ben never mistransformed to Ghost Freak in Classic Season 4. I feel like that could have been a really interesting plot line. And getting a notification as well. Okay, one moment, please. Look at this really fast. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're back. So, with this here, I'm thinking that, yeah, Ghost Freak. Aside from that, though, I kind of do like I kind of have a soft. I'm somewhat mixed on Ghost Freak. Like, I love, you know, classic Ghost Freak looks cool and such, with like the shrouds and such. Their attempt to give Ghost Freak clothing in Omniverse is a little awkward with the chains and such, even though like Scare's no longer part of Ghost Freak and Omniverse officially. Like, I guess the chains kind of work in, like, it just feels like more, oh, spooky, scary, Halloween, and such. It doesn't add up to me, personally. So, I would have probably gone for more like a cloak, like a green cloak, akin to, like, the cloak and hood Scare has in Omniverse, or Omniverse Ghost Freak, but green, but, hey, whatever. Cannonbolt. Probably my favorite Omnitrix transformation of all time, because it's kind of one note, but it's just so versatile in the way that really does work, in my opinion. You know, like, he's basically like a giant, he's a giant roly-poly and such, with impenetrable armor. You know, he can roll very easily. Like, imagine if you could transform into Cannonbolt. You basically become your own car. No more car insurance, you can just grab your things, curl up, and then roll all the way to work. It just, again, it's hard to explain a lot of these transformations, at least the ones I really like. Like, the ones if you, like, really dislike, it will be easier for me to explain than the ones I actually like. So think about it like that, so to speak. But yeah, Campbell also has super strength and speed basically built into him in a way through his rolling, through his ball form. And, like, his debut in the Big Tick really shows that off, which I also really love. You know, his design doesn't really change much aside from changements and changes in the stripe pattern and like the Omnitrix badge placement. I feel like they could have perhaps, and I'm guessing they could perhaps, like in Omniverse, they could have given Cannonballs like maybe some green shorts or something, or green boots for Sen's Cannonballs. But aside from that, I don't really have that many complaints. So yeah. Now, Wildvine. I would place Wildvine... I love his debut in Camp Fear and how well he was used there. And it was used decently well throughout the rest of Classic in episodes like Midnight Madness. So he kind of took a back seat 4. I'd have to say... I actually like him, I'll place him above Heat Blast. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I like the badge. I also like his badge place in Omniverse with a very simple belt. I feel like I think a simple belt will work well for a lot of Omniverse transformations, but more on that later. Moving on, we got the first of the Ben 10,000 trio, so to speak, with Spitter. I wish we saw more of him, but honestly, with these three in particular, I'm going to kind of place them into meh. Or maybe not meh, but... You know, Spitter I think I'll place the top of meh. Well, Urtuguana and Buzzshock will go, and I casually like them, just below Heat Blast. Urtuguana a bit more because I like the design and such. Basically a lizard almost that can shoot. Kind of shoots, you know, Grant can breathe ice. But I like how Buzzshock's also kind of a living battery, so I'd say we're about tied there. Yeah, that sounds about right. Next up, we have the Halloween Trio, starting with Venwolf slash Blitzwolfer. And I actually preferred Blitzwolfer over Venwolf. I mean, both names suck, honestly, but you know, Blitzwolfer is just a slightly bit less lazy, I guess you could say. And I like how he was handled in his debut for, in the episode Venwolf, how Ben slowly transformed into, I'm just gonna call him Blitzwolfer for the rest of this, due to how the Omnitrix was stuck between scan mode and, activate mode, I guess you could say. I think that's what it was, so, yeah. So yeah, I really do think Blitzwolfer, you know, there's a lot going for him. Like, unfortunately, he was basically given the shaft until Omniverse. The Ultimate Alien intro does not count. And, you know, like, I do prefer his classic design. Omniverse has made him look too much like a werewolf, and the split tongue, whenever he opens his, like, split jawed mouth is just, like, way too cheesy in my opinion, and such. But also, Blitzwolfer was only used that one time in Season 3 of Classic and never used again, which sucks. But I casually like him in a similar way too. I'll place him above Urtuguana and Buzzshock. Snarrow is my favorite of the Halloween trio, and will be going into, I'd say, a pretty big fan above Grey Matter. It was also nice to see him get at least one extra appearance outside his debut in Classic. Granted, that was being used by Ben 10,000 and Ken, but it's better than nothing. I also love I also love how Omniverse gave him like a different kind of like head shape. They could have lazily reused the Classic one, but you know, I mean, the head shapes for both Classic and Omniverse Snarrow both look good. And I do like his powers of basically like using the stretchy bandages and such. It definitely has like something of a, I don't know, something just clicks with Snarrow in my opinion. Frankenstrike's probably my least favorite of the bunch, mainly because it just feels so the most tacked on of the bunch, because it looks like a human that's just Frankenstein's an alien. Forums, I can kind of excuse that because they add tiny little details like the extra pair of eyes and such, but Frankenstrike's like literally electric Frankenstein. I don't really get that many alien vibes from him, personally. So I'm gonna probably put him at the bottom and neutral. Upchuck. Pretty big fan, actually. But I do like and such. Well, I'm not gonna go too much into Frankenstrike's designs. Upchuck, I'm gonna place in pretty big fan above Wildmud. It's very simplistic in the way he does. Actually, I think I'll place him below Wildmud. You know, very simple. He basically did eat a lot. It's very simplistic. You know, he's like a living. He's basically like a living stomach. That's just like the stomach almost. He takes projectiles and junk and whatever and shoots it back out. And I think, you know, the way to handle it, it's basically one of the deflecting aliens and such. And I think they handle it pretty well for Upchuck. I'm not a huge fan of like the Merc split they make for Upchuck and Omniverse when it's like subspecies because of how much of a conundrum that created in the Ben 10 fan base and like, oh, what qualifies as being viable to be scanned by the Omnitrix? But I feel like I should have had it be more just like different pattern color differences rather than different subspecies because that would have gone a long way. But yeah. Ditto. I don't like how his powers are basically nerfed gets boosted at the same time in Omniverse where like not all the species share the same pain anymore. I feel like that was really differentiated Ditto from Echo quite a bit. But, you know, I enjoy Ron Paulson's voice for Ditto, and all the designs look pretty good, and such. And, like, there are some moments where, especially in Omniverse, where Team Ben uses Ditto pretty creatively, and such. I think Mother Where Art Thou is like, a pretty good example, too, so I'll place him above Artiguana. Yeah. I think that Guy had a good amount of potential, but I feel like his design, again, it kind of mixed. I'm not a fan of how humanoid it is nowadays, but I do like how it's not just like eyes on his face and on the rest of his body. It's just like one single line in the head. Like it's eyes all over the body and only back like ears on the face, plus the mouth, of course. So, like they never explain like how the eyes are able to like shoot fire beams, electric bolts, like fire, electricity, and ice at once in such a plasma beam. I think it's kind of lazy personally, but I'll place him in meh. Way big! Goes way up into, I'd say, like I nowadays know that he's like a giant what's it called? Hold on. It was a reference to something, but like he's a living reference to something. Ultraman, that's what it was. He's a living Ultraman reference in a way, and such. And I'm not a huge fan of the humanoid design, but I guess for way big, like someone that huge, it does kind of work. Especially since later on in the Omniverse we learned like he's also has like a body of living metal. That definitely explains why he's able to support all that weight, and, like a planetary gravity and such. Because he's made of like powerful, like living metals, probably stronger than titanium and such. So I like that detail they added to him in Omniverse. I was not a fan of how they took away a lot of the detail from his design in UAF. Like they could have also given him some clothing too, like maybe give him like an Omniverse belt, so to speak. But yeah, I'd say pretty big fan. Alright, actually I want to try something. I want to see if I can find some DS music for one of the Alien Force video games now, as we move on to Alien Force. One moment. Let's see here. Or should I go with should I go with Vilgax Tax? Again, we're going to try and go with the DS versions of these soundtracks. Yeah, let's just go with this. Actually, no. Let's go with... let's go with the... Yeah, this one. For, yeah. The Alien Force CS. This is like 20 minutes. It'll last long enough. There we go. Yeah, that should do it. Okay, so, we're back. Now we move on to the Ultimate Alien Force era. Starting with the Alien Force, the Recalibrate 10, Swamp Fire! Is someone who I've always just thought as, like, a mishmash of Heat Blast and Wildvine, I'm sorry, but... Over the years, in recent years, I've gained a bit more respect for Swamp Fire. A bit more, I especially like Swampfire's original designs in the fact that he had like those tree-like legs and such. I feel like that differentiated him from Wildvine a good amount and such. I was never really a fan about like how would I say it? I would also say that I don't like how Swampfire is always able to shoot like fireballs and such. I feel like that should have been exclusive to Heat Blast. And if Swampfire needed fire abilities, like maybe just give him like the flamethrower attack, so to speak. And maybe he could have like had like explosive bomb seeds akin to Wildvine's, but his were just mainly like flame bombs rather than explosive bombs and such. At the same time, you know, D. Bradley Baker's Swampfire voice is very iconic, especially the one they gave to Swampfire before he blossoms in Omniverse, which I see what they were going for in Omniverse with the Swampfire design there. I like the collar, how it's like a blooming flower and such, but the problem is they do away with like the tree legs and like the shade of green they give to Swampfire's final Omniverse design is just way too vibrant of a green. I like the swampy, murky green more. I'm gonna get some hate for this, but it's like if they kind of gave like Swampfire more of a fireproof build, and only like if they played up the fireproof elements, like maybe if they play the plant elements more than the fire elements, which I kind of do throughout much of UAF and Omniverse, but like I mean really do so. Like have the fire attacks be a very minor thing, with plant abilities differ enough from Wildvine's to make him stand out. I feel like that would have worked well, but I'm gonna have to say he goes barely above Frankenstrike and meh. Echo Echo. I like the little guy, you know. I like how he's differentiated from Ditto, or at least used to be, you know, like how he's like he basically creates tons of himself. You know, wall of sound and so on. I feel like he could have been utilized a little better at points. Like in Duped, like, that was a really cool idea for Duped, for, like, Ben to use Echo Echo to make 3 of his own self. Too bad that episode was a dumpster fire, but what are you gonna do? And such. As for the designs, I could take it or leave it if either the UF or Omniverse designs. Like, I'm not sure if, like, Echo Echo is really a design that needs, like, a Omnitrix outfit or whatever. Like, maybe they could have given him just, like, the Omniverse belt, so to speak. But personally, I feel like Echo, although it's around this time where like they start to introduce, like, similar to, aside from Frankenstrike, Classic really didn't feel too mechanical with any of its aliens. Aside from Upgrade, but that was really the point. Upgrade and Buzzshock were pretty much the point of it all. Like, Echo Echo, I get where they're going with, like, the headphones and such, but I feel like they could have, instead of, I don't know, maybe make his mouth like a giant, like, subwoofer or something. Like, just a wide open mouth that functions as, like, a loudspeaker. I don't know. I think that was just scrapped to keep Echo Echo small in size or whatever. But I'll place him right behind, about tied with Ditto, and casually like him. Humongosaur! I casually like him. I think I'll place him at the top. You know, he's basically, or maybe just below Wildvine. Like, I hate how overused he became later on and such. But, like, especially the fact that they scrapped his growing ability, like, very early on in Ultimate Alien, basically, and literally forgot about it by the time they made Omniverse. Like, seriously, there are crew statements out there basically saying, oh, we forgot about Humongosaur's size changing ability, when it was so prominent early on in Alien Force, especially that one scene in the episode Be United, I think it was the episode where Humongosaur basically, literally, held this one Forever Knight and his squire against a car with just one of his fingers, and it's like, what else are you not telling us? The squire then basically says, well, I'm not telling you anything else. And then Humongosaur, literally, all he does is he basically grows in size to his maximum 60-foot tall form, and then leans down in front of the squire. And that's all it takes to make the squire crack and admit what's really going on and such. It's been so long since I've seen an episode, but that scene will always stand out to me and such. I know there's Ultimate Humongosaur later on, but we're not talking about Ultimate forms here, just the basic Omnitrix transformations from Classic to Omniverse, like I said before. Again, I hate how overused he became by Ultimate Alien and such, and I get big, strong guy, but at least they could have at least demonstrated him, you know, using his growing powers more. I think the episode was, like in Omniverse, for instance, the episode, Have I Got a Deal for You? Like, Ben should have at least thought about turning to Humongosaur and using his size-changing abilities to... actually, no, that's a bad example, because Blotz was actually a better candidate for that because of his shape-changing abilities. Or Diamond Head, or anybody else like that. Humongosaur, I'm not sure how he'd be able to keep a train rolling and such. Yeah. I don't mind the outfit they gave to Humongosaur in Omniverse, so I feel like they could have just placed the... they didn't really need the bandolier. They could have just placed the Omnitrix badge on his waist and then called it a day. But, yeah. That's Humongosaur for you. Jet Ray, one of only four Omnitrix transformations not to be shown in Omniverse, alongside Spitter, Fast Track, and Chameleon. Aside from his ability to, like, fly at the speed of light, which was just blatantly dropped and, like, introduced halfway through Ultimate Alien, I really like him. He's definitely up there as one of my favorite UAF transformations. He has, especially the fact, you know, like, he has a very alien-looking design, and yet, like, he could have been even more alien, but it has, like, because it's still somewhat humanoid, but the gliding wings and such, like, the Manta, like, the gills on the hip, on, like, the sides of his waist and such really do help out there. Shooting lasers out of the tail is a neat detail, and so on. I really do like how Jet Raider's... I know Jet Raider's kind of overused, but why was he given a boot from Omniverse, and yet Humongousaur wasn't? That makes no sense. I know some people are going to say toy sales, but something I should mention is that the roleplay toys, like those toy Omnitrixes, outsold, like, the average Ben 10 action figures by a margin of about 10 to 1. So, I don't know why, like, certain aliens weren't allowed to have so much screen time in Omniverse if poor toy sales was the excuse when there's that ratio. But I guess, but then again, money and greed can drive a person crazy, so there you go. Next up, Big Chill. I'll place him in, I'm a pretty big fan, I will place him above Jet Ray. You know, I love the moth-like look, especially in Omniverse, believe it or not, because one problem I also have with UAF, though this was outside of the creative team's control, is that many of the designs in UAF for the Omnitrix heroes were basically mandated to be more humanoid for the sake of toy sales as well. But by the time Omniverse came around, they were actually able to change the proportions of Big Chill quite a bit, and you know, I know people don't like the Hunchback look, but actually I'm fine with it because it makes Big Chill no longer look like a mere guy in a suit. It actually makes him look more alien. And such. I especially like the moth-like fuzz with that black fluffy collar that Big Chill has in Omniverse. They play up the moth aspect to it more, and yet they still make him look like a Grim Reaper whenever he has his cloak closed. That and combined with, you know, D. Bradley Baker's voice, and I'd say you got a pretty good Omnitrix transformation there. Chroma Stone kinda got the shaft in. Definitely got the shaft, like, in Season 3 of Alien Force, where he was basically just killed off and replaced with Diamond Head, in a sense. Well, that's a whole other can of worms. I like how I'm not a fan of how not a fan of the name with Chroma Stone being, like, a living conductor. Something like Conductastone or something, or Chrome Conductor or whatever would have been a more creative idea, but I casually like him. I'll place him above Humongousaur. And I like how he differentiates himself from Upchuck in the sense that, like, he redirects energy back at opponents, but in a different way from Upchuck, you know? Like, Upchuck can gobble up, like, matter, it's not like projectiles or anything like that. Whereas with Chroma Stone, it has to be projectiles. But, like, he doesn't have to go out of his way to eat it first. He could just, as long as he's not caught off guard, he can absorb, like, the electricity or energy attacks of an enemy and then redirect it back at him. You know, I think that's a good way to differentiate these two, in a sense. So good there. Brainstorm would be my favorite of the UAF. Not UAF, of the Recalibrate 10. He goes right up into its hero time. Probably above Forums, even. I love the crab look. Like, they manage to differentiate still a good deal from the humanoid design in spite of those toy line mandates. I'm not a fan of, like, I'm not a huge fan of the Omniverse design where, like, they add these stripes and such. I feel like putting the belt over his, breathing brace would have worked well enough for an outfit. And the fact they took away a pair of Brainstorm's legs. And hot take, but I actually prefer D. Bradley Baker's Brainstorm voice over Corey Burton's. Burton's isn't bad, it's just, I feel like, no, to be fair, Brainstorm was one of those aliens given the shaft in Omniverse and he really didn't get enough time to shine. His only big scene was in that one, it was in Season 6's The Avengers. And it was a pretty good scene. So I feel like the sound work they did with Corey Burton's voice of Brainstorm, like, they put too much of a reverb on it to the point where it's kind of hard to understand. But, yeah. But aside from that, you know, I still really like Brainstorm. He's my favorite of the UAF. No, not that, but of the Recalibrate 10. And he was introduced before Electric Aliens became overused in Ben 10, so, I mean, before Brainstorm, there was just Buzzshock and Frankenstrike. And, like, Buzzshock had the excuse of being, like, one of the Ben 10,000 future aliens. I feel like Brainstorm just has a bit more of an alien feel than Frankenstrike. Way more, in fact, so there is that too.
Spider Monkey!
I will put him on the top of casually like him. They could have played more into, like, the spider aspect. I like how Spider Monkey's, like, has only, like, 3 fingers on his hands to make him look more alien and such, but he just looks more like a blue monkey than anything else. I do like the hairstyle they give him in Omniverse that makes him look, ironically enough, that kind of makes him a bit look more like a, like, it kind of similar to, like, fur patterns many, modern monkey species have. They could have added more of, like, the spider into that and such. Like, maybe give him, like, a pair of, like, tarantula, like, face or something. But that probably wouldn't be too appealing. I like how, for example, I like, for example, how Ultimate Spider Monkey, I know I wouldn't be talking about Ultimates usually, but, like, if Ultimate Spider Monkey, for instance, he is able to split his jaw in 2. Similar to how, like, a tarantula, for instance, has like, a pair of chelicerae. It kind of reminds me of that. Like, they could have given Spider Monkey, like, a pair of, like, veins and such. And so she really emphasized that. And so on. Then he gets kind of overused in Ultimate Alien, but otherwise, you know, he's there, you know. Goop? Goop wasn't really utilized that much. And, like, they almost always forget about the anti-gravity projector. Except for the episodes like Primus, like except for crappy episodes like Primus, they usually forget about the anti-gravity projector when they could have done so much with that. It's kind of I do kind of like how the Omnitrix badge is on the projector in Omniverse, but I'm gonna probably have to place them in just above Swampfire. Alien X. Ooh, I'm gonna have some hot takes now. Get ready, everybody. With Alien X, first of all, I want to mention that I rewatched University of Tennyson today, and it's probably one of the most hated episodes in the entirety of Ben 10 because they literally give Ben the full keys to Alien X. First of all, the way Ben was characterized in Omniverse, would you really give somebody like that control over a literal god? Like, I love Alien X's design, you know, like it's very simple, but I feel like when you have a literal celestial god like this, it actually works. But I actually like how very little Alien X was utilized in UAF, because it showed just how powerful he was, and, like, the safeguard put into Alien X with Bellicus and Serena, and it showed just how, like, powerful Alien X is and why those safeguards are in place. Hence why I like how he was used in So Long, Goodbye, and Thanks for All Those Movies. Granted, that episode's pretty mid, but I love how Alien X was used in that, because it was such a dire situation that it wasn't really out of Ben's selfish desire or anything like that. Alien X was being used because the Annihilark went off and the universe was being destroyed. Like, that's how dire of a situation, like, that's... And yet they give Ben complete control over Alien X. Like, I know some people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine, but I feel like with Ben having complete control over Alien X now, it takes out almost all the tension in Ben 10. In, like, Ben's stories and such. Like, I know... It's just the fact is, like, or at the very least, Ben should have at least not been allowed to have complete control over Alien X until, like, he was at least 18 or whatever. But instead, we have 16-year-old Teen Ben gain access to Alien X, and we're talking about the Omniverse Teen Ben, where he is way more he is way more stuck up, bratty and such, basically like Season 3 of Alien Force. I would not let any teenager have access to Alien X and it's like the full powers of Alien X. Hold on a second. Give me a moment. Let me go back for a moment. Had to reset the start. I'm gonna almost restart the track there. So yeah, like, it's tough when it comes to Alien X because conceptually, I love the idea because it shows a super powerful Omnitrix transformation that should only be used in the most dire of circumstances. I mean, in the case of Universe V Tense, that was technically true, but that's only because they basically wrote themselves into a corner with that case. I mean, personally, that episode just feels like a cheap excuse to let Ben utilize the Alien X however he wants, even that just defeats the point. I mean, there was an entire arc in Ultimate Alien about Agrigor trying to absorb the powers of a baby Celestial Sapien because baby Celestial Sapiens don't have those conflicting personalities. If Agrigor absorbed that baby Alien X, he could have easily become a god. Like, real stakes. God, like, the amount of hate I have for Universe V Tennyson could... That episode of Omniverse, that's a rant best left for another day, but... It's a real... I'm so mixed on it, on Alien X. I love the idea, but execution-wise, it's really a mixed bag. I'm going to have to place him squarely in the middle of... almost the middle of meh. I guess you could say. Okay, I'll be generous. I'll put him at the top. Lodestar! We'll go right up into the Hero Time tier. He's a living magnet. Like, his design's a little humanoid for my tastes, but there's a living magnet and you can do so much with that. I love the color scheme they give to Lodestar. Like, the floating head's a really nice touch. And such. I love how there's, like, these shoulder spikes that basically... I like to imagine they're kind of like a... They hold the polarity of his head in place. Like, it's not very organic, but for a living magnet like Lodestar, that's kind of the point. So, I'll let that slide. You know, Mick, I'd say pretty big fan. It was a real shame he got really underutilized after, like, the first season of Ultimate Alien. Like, he was using Alien Swarm. He was used pretty well in the climax of Ultimate Alien's episode Video Games. And then he only had, like, the amount of appearances throughout the rest of Ultimate Alien and Alien Swarm combined, you could count, like, one, maybe two hands. Like, he's shrink to microscopic proportions. He's half technology, half human DNA. A combination that the Omnitrix literally created itself. Like, you could do so much with that. And he just wasted a lot of that. Like, I know in Omniverse, like, they got Grey Matter back, but... Like, there are situations that not even Grey Matter is small enough to handle, so they really should have done more with Nanomech. In fact, I feel really sorry for Nanomech. I'm gonna place him above Jet Ray and Big Shell. Like, also kind of ironic that Nanomech and Waybig are right next to each other, in a sense. But, yeah. Like, I love the idea there. I love Nanomech's origin story, if you guys could say. So much you could do with that, and they just wasted it. Let me tell you something, viewers! Wrath's going up into the Hero Time tier! Sorry if I made the audio peak and such, but... Yeah, I love Wrath. We all love Wrath. I mean, yeah, he's basically a living... I know. It really is, like... I mean, when you combine John DiMaggio's voice acting for Wrath, like, with the tiger motif, and especially the wrestling bits, like, you have a combination that, like, I mean, from his debut episode, Con of Wrath alone, like, Wrath is just, he is just a joy to watch whenever he's on screen. Like, only the amount of times where he's not fun to watch, I can count, like, maybe one hand. At best. Like, even his appearance in Duped was pretty good. No, like, so inside little fan, the little phone saying, "Let me tell you something, Gwen Tennyson. I was walking along to Julie's tennis match, and then I saw these Forever Knights. I don't care, get here!" That was harsh. Like, it's just so good. As for the design they gave to Wrath in Season 8, with the redesign, I'm not talking about the eyebrows in early on in Omniverse, but, like, in like, Omniverse's, like, the wrestling outfit for Wrath, I see what they were trying to do, but they overdid, in my opinion. Wrath does not need the mask. I like the gloves. I like the gloves and the shoes, but, like, if they got rid of the tank top and in the mask, and they replaced, like, the shorts and boots with just some pants, but kept the gloves that would have worked better. Like, think 5 years later Wrath, but add the Omniverse redesigned gloves, and I think you would have had a really good Wrath design there, in a sense. Like, I'm usually not a fan of how how Wrath just looked like a tiger, like how that was utilized in Omniverse sometimes, like in episode Catfight, where they played stuff way too much, or like in Gone Fishing, where he's like, oh, I hate water, even though tigers love water. That makes loads of no sense. But again, he is meant to be an alien, so like an extraterrestrial creature, so part of me actually thinks they could have maybe swapped out the tiger bit for Honey Badger, because of how aggressive Honey Badgers can be. I don't know, but Wrath's still an absolute joy to watch and such. I'd say he's about tied with Forearms. And with that, we basically wrap up Alien Forces lineup. With that out of the way, we will now move on to the Ultimate Alien lineup. But I want to see if I can try and find the Cosmic Destruction soundtrack, the DS version first. So, one moment. Looky here. Looks like we're lucky. That sounds very low quality. Maybe this? Okay, nope. Don't want to get copyright claimed for that. Let's see here. Let's see here. What's this? Okay, let's see here. I guess we're going to have to go with this. Okay, then. Okay, yeah, this should do the trick. Alright, so now we have finally found good music from the DS version of Cosmic Destruction. We can now move on to the 11 aliens introduced in Ultimate Alien. And yes, Shock Squatch is one of them because he was introduced in Heroes United, the Generator X crossover. Starting with Water Hazard! I love the barnacles they gave him in Omniverse and such. The fact that it's kind of crazy it took this long to give Ben like a water-based alien transformation. I'm not a fan of how humanoid he is though, so I would say pretty big fan. On top of that, probably. Yeah, sounds about right. Amphibian, it would have been cool if Ben actually utilized amphibians like ability to go through electric wires and such, and like his mind reading abilities too, as shown by Rad and Fused, but they never really do that and such. So, like, I like the jellyfish-esque design and such, but I'm going to place him in meh. Where in meh? I would say just above Spitter, yeah. Omnitrix might actually be my favorite of. Like, I'm usually not a fan of, like, I'm not. I'd say he goes right below Water Hazard. You know, I love the drilling. I like the fact that he's sort of a digging type alien. Not a fan of, like, the jackhammer arms, though, but he has a lot of nostalgia for me. Back in the day, he was easily my favorite of the Andromeda 5. You know, like, he's a living jackhammer that can dig and such. Armadillo, you know, Armadillo. I don't like how mechanical aliens usually look, but there's a lot of nostalgia I have for Armadillo, so he's probably placed him way too high up in my opinion there, but still. Terraspin, I liked how he has air powers. I'm not a fan of how his legs basically fuse to form the third blade. I would have vastly preferred it if if he had a tail that became the third blade and such. Similar to how Terraspin's portrayed in stuff like 5 years later and such. I feel like that would have been a better choice for Terraspin. But overall, you know, I'm also not a fan of how he's like I know, again, still goes back into the humanoid design thing. Like, it's just like, oh, 2 arms, 2 legs and such. But at the same time, though, the fact that the legs can fuse into that blade does sort of make it a little less humanoid. I casually like Terraspin, but I would probably place him at the bottom. Right there. Energy is an interesting case. But I like how the Ultimatrix and later on Omnitrix were able to, like, design like, energy, I feel like they could have made the suit, like, less humanoid itself, though. I don't know. Like, how would I describe this? Maybe I can't place my finger on it. I'm not a fan of how, like, Omniverse gives his helmet, like, the top of the suit, like, a handle or whatever. I do like how in Omniverse we actually see energy come outside of the suit and such. I'm not sure, like, if you needed, like, a harness or whatever. I feel like, actually, a harness does look good on, like, the, pure energy in Omniverse, but I'd say casually like him is pretty good. Though, like, in my opinion, energy should have been actually atomics. Like, atomics and energy should have been the same Omnitrix transformation, because we're talking about radiation here, like, pure radiation. That sounds like atomics to me. Like, this was a golden opportunity they missed to have, like, they could have just had this guy be atomics in a sense. Because both of them are, like, living radiation suits, in a way. I say casually like him. Tied to Feet Blast, I guess. Fast Track. No. Now, look, I know Fast Track has been getting a lot of love in recent years, and, like, when alien powers overlap and such, like, I don't mind that. As long as it's in, like, slightly, in small doses and such. But the problem is, not only does Fast Track copy Accelerate's powers, but he literally copies Accelerate's color scheme too. Apparently, from what I've heard, like, one source site basically claimed, like, they couldn't animate Accelerate's tail, hence why he got the shaft in Ultimate Alien Force, when, you know, Helen Wheels was right there, so I don't know what happened there. It's just that Fast Track just looks like a generic speedster superhero, and, like, what made Accelerate work well is that the design really emphasized speed. I don't really see any of that in Fast Track, aside from, like, the elbow and leg blades. And, like, they could have at least given him a different color scheme, but no, he's just the same black and blue Accelerate has. And I'm sorry, it just feels lazy. It really does feel lazy. And the fact that Fast Track was literally created just for the sake of making him a selling point of Galactic Racing, that 2011 video game, does not help matters. I can't stand Fast Track, I'm sorry. Just, like, giving Ben another ground terrestrial-based speedster is not a terrible idea, but I hate the execution here. It's not hard to see why Fast Track was never shown in Omniverse outside of some brief mentions. Or even brought up in Omniverse outside of some brief mentions, I should say. Chameleon. Very simplistic, but I do have a lot of respect for Chameleon in that, like, considering that his DNA source had a pretty good episode from Ultimate Alien, but it was very overused. We have other invisible aliens. I would probably say meh, just below Amphibian. That sounds about right. Shock Swatch. By this point, we're really starting to really overuse the electrical alien thing. I do like how he managed to make. I do like how he was a creation of Heroes United, and that's special. But again, though, like, and I actually prefer his Heroes United design as well, because I really hate, like, I'm not even a huge fan of Electivire, the Pokemon, but you can just tell from his design that Electivire is just not Electivire. That Omniverse Shock Squatch is practically a in Electivire knockoff. It's just, I really hate the look. I'm sorry. It just, I know that Shock Swatch is, like, I do like the idea of electric punches and such, but I feel like Frankenstrike could easily do that. And I'm very tempted to place him in actively dislike, but I'll be generous and put him at the very bottom of meh. Clockwork is a similar situation to Alien X, in that, like, I feel like there really should have been safeguards put into Clockwork's, like, biology, so to speak, so where he could only use his time powers in, like, dire situations. But without that, again, I would not necessarily recommend playing a teenage superhero in charge of, like, allowing him to use Clockwork, at least until after Ultimate Alien, when, you know, the whole Dagon arc and such, and how Ben made his choices there. But I would place him in the middle of meh. Also, they could have done, I know it's at the same time, though, his design being very clock-like is the point, so I'm not going to take too many points off there, but yeah. Edel, actively dislike. I hated how robotic he looked in Ultimate Alien. Omniverse's design was a huge step up, but he's basically a, I don't like power overlap, but, like, his powers are literally a copy of Upchuck's. Except instead of spitting them out, he just shoots them out of his little horn. Again, if you want to do power overlap correctly, the Upchuck versus Chromastone is how you do it, with, like, power redirection. That, I think, is how you do it. You know, Upchuck has to ingest, like, matter of some sort, or energy, or some sort of, like, somewhat solid projectile attack, at least, or something similar, and he has to barf it back out. With Chromastone, he has to absorb electrical or energy-based attack, but he doesn't have to go through the process of having to ingest something to shoot it out. So, like, there's different trade-offs to the power sets and such. Pros and trade-offs to the power sets and such between Upchuck and Chromastone. That's why I feel like the power overlap there works really well. Not so much with Upchuck and Edel, and especially not with Fast Track and Accelerate. Jury Rig. Jury Rig. He just looks like a little gremlin. I don't hate him, but... instead of actively dislike, I'm gonna rename this category to... nah. Actually, no, just dislike. That's better, yeah. Just purely, not like actively dislike, just dislike, because, you know, like, I get what they were trying to do with Jury Rig, in that, like, oh, he's like a little grandma that fixes things and such, but, you know, his debut was not very good, and, like, it's just so, like, I think, of course, his Omniverse redesign is a huge step up. I like the outfit they gave him, but it just, like, it looks too humanoid in that sense, because it's like, oh, he's a little guy that fixes things. Like, doesn't feel like there's a lot of biology behind that or something, I guess you could say. I don't know how else to describe it there. Now we can finally move on to Omniverse. But first, let me just, let me see if I can find an Omniverse soundtrack for, like, DS or 3DS games. Let me try that real quick. Let's see here. Or I could go with the 3DS, or I could go with the 3DS soundtrack. Yeah, let's go with that.
I'm going to tell you my biggest content creation secret.
Ugh. Oh, great, they have ads on that one. Nope. No, not touching off a 10-foot pole. Let's see here. Okay. There's no playlist for it. Or extended soundtrack? What's this? Okay, boss battle thing. Let's see here. Nope, not dealing with that. Okay, yeah, that's not an option. What should I go with? Which one should I go with? Let's try and find, like, DS soundtrack for Omniverse 1 again and see here. Can I trust it not to give me... Nope, I cannot... Nope, that has ads on it. Nope, not gonna go with that. Ben 10 Omniverse Collection. How about these? Oh, these must have been from the Ben 10 game creator, I think. Or something like that. Yeah, I can work with this. lower the volume of that a little bit, and I think we got something good. Yeah, let's finish this up. It's almost 11 o'clock, jeez. We gotta make this quick. Alright. Oh, a second. Oh, yeah. Feedback. Which I'm gonna place in at the top of meh. And here's why. Because, like, he's yet another electrical alien, but the malware arc really does push him forward, in my opinion. Because, like, I really do love how, like, I love the idea of Ben having lost an alien seemingly permanently, like an Omnitrix transformation seemingly permanently out of overuse. Now, to be fair, in, like, Showdown Part 1 of Omniverse, like, it wasn't really entirely due to overuse that Ben lost feedback there when he was 11. More just malware pulling, like, stripping Ben of feedback at the worst possible time because of bad luck. But at the same time, Ben's overuse of feedback still plays into that because, you know, Ben got so overconfident with feedback that he was like, oh yeah, I'll beat feedback again. And it was that poor decision-making on Ben's part due to his addiction to feedback that malware is able to destroy feedback for many years in Ben's eyes. And again, like, that's often speculated, and it was originally planned to be the official reason as to why Ben removed the Omnitrix for a few years, because of the trauma from losing feedback. And I feel like it could, and it just has such a good vibe when he's brought back in, like, Showdown Part 2, where you see 16-year-old feedback for the first time and single-handedly take down malware. They could have explained it a little bit better as to why Ben got feedback back, I guess you could say, in Part 2 of that. Though I personally like to think that Ben got him back, not just through, like, willpower or whatever, but, like, because, you know, since malware was the one who ripped feedback out of Ben, Ben was able to basically go back into malware, the kaiju malware, and retrieve feedback that way, along with accepting the fact that, yeah, he's, of course, not perfect. And, like, you know, accept failure and such, and not to beat yourself up over it. A great lesson for anybody to learn, honestly. You know, don't beat yourself up all the time over your past failures. It's just that, again, he's very similar to Chroma Stone. But again, the malware arc really does elevate feedback a whole lot for me, so I'll put him at the top of meh. Next up, we have blocks. Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one, but I'd have to say I was not a huge fan of blocks originally, but he did grow on me. And while he is living Legos, I feel like it would have worked if the Segmenta Sapiens were an artificial race akin to the Galvanic Mechamorphs. I don't know, maybe it's just the sound design that they give to blocks in Omniverse. It has a fun aspect to it. Like, a lot of the visual elements of Omniverse and sound design combined are just meant to be fun. Too bad, granted, it got overused later on in Omniverse, those vibes, I guess you could say, but for now, he has warmed up on me a little bit. I just wish his lore was better, you know? I really do feel like if the Segmenta Sapiens were less organic and more of a race of, instead, like, abandoned toys, that would have worked amazingly, and it would have placed blocks up into perhaps even the bottom of Hero Time. But I'll put him at the very, very, very bottom, or either the very top of I Casually Like Him, or the very bottom of a pretty big fan. I'll go with this one. I Casually Like Him. I just wish he had better lore. Gravitak, it's a somewhat similar situation to Clockwork and Alien X, but I'll put him at the bottom of I Casually Like Him instead, because, you know, like, I can definitely see in, like, the world of Ben 10, like, there being, like, living planet people, in a sense, with supposed DNA. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of how Gravitak can create his own black holes. That's a little OP in my opinion, but everything else is pretty cool there. Also, another thing is that, like, DNA is carbon-based, though, so I'm not sure how Azimuth was able to get DNA from, like, silicon-based Echo here, or from, like, the pure radiation, or, like, how the Omnitrix got DNA from, like, energy or whatever. Granted, it's science fiction, but still. Crash Hopper. I casually like him. I like how he finally had, like, a jumping alien form for Ben to really take use of. But nothing else about him really stuck out to me too much, so... just above Grav Attack, I guess. Ball Weevil. He's kind of a little too... Like, I know he's... I like how there's a bit of an overlap with Cannonbolt, but, like, there's enough of a difference. It's a similar thing of Upchuck and Chromestone, where, like, the power is, like, you know, using balls-based weaponry. Don't take that out of context, please, but I like how it works with Ball Weevil and such. I just don't have a lot of nostalgia, though, for him, so I say I casually like him. I'll place him... tied with Echo Echo and Ditto, let's just say that. Waka Trout. He's just too one note. I'm sorry. Also, I'm not a fan of the harness. It just looks cheesy. Like, the design, like... if they really wanted to play up the slipperiness... Actually, I'll put him on the bottom. I'm sorry. He's just a one-note... oh, he's pathetic. That's the joke. But actually, I'll speed through some of the Outbreak aliens, then. Pesky Dust. I actually really like Pesky Dust. And the abilities there, like, with, like, dreams and such, and nightmares. I'll put Pesky Dust, one moment. I think I'll put Pesky Dust in... Okay, yeah, pretty big fan. Yeah, I'm not a fan of, like, the mind... Personally, I don't like it, like, when people can automatically read minds, because, personally, I don't like my thoughts being probed, you know, because, you know, privacy and all that, but for a superpower, I guess it makes sense, so... Actually, I'll place him above Jet Ray. Yeah, I'll place him above Jet Ray. Or tied with Jet Ray, I guess you could say. Molestache. They don't do enough with him, I'm sorry. The worst. I get that, I like the idea of him being durable, but the design is just so stupid. With, like, the underwear, and it's actually kind of offensive when you think about it, because, like, that could basically be seen as a slur against, like, the worst species. When you really think about it. It just... I like that one scene where an Apoplexians actually loses to the worst because of his durability, and that could have made something interesting with that, but they just don't. He goes below, like, tied with Molestache. Kickenhawk, I don't like how humanoid Kickenhawk is. Like, they could have mainly, at the same time, it does make him look a bit more alien, at the same time, though, with, like, the bird-like talons. Like, he's tied with Shock Squatch, in my opinion. That sounds about right. Topic. This is an interesting one, because I don't mind Topic having fear-based powers, but I really wish they delved more into the gross-out aspect of him, because, you know, Kenny and Ken 10 said, they're like, oh, Topic is so gross and such, and, like, Topic's Omniverse design definitely is gross-looking, but not gross enough. Like, if they really wanted to, like, they could have melded, like, gross-out abilities with, like, the fear powers and such, in a way that still makes him different enough from Ghost Freak. And, like, maybe, like, make him ooze, like, sorry, this is gonna sound really gross, I know, but stick with me here, like, maybe have him ooze, like, tons of smelly pus or whatever, it's a power, that could be used like a projectile weapon, but also, like, but also emits, like, this smelly gas that, if inhaled, like, makes people get manic fear or whatever. And, like, have like, a plethora of that come out of, like, the little, like, chamber that makes up Topic's mask. That, like, is where most of the pus comes out of, and, like, and such. Like, really aim it into that gross-out thing that makes people so... fills up somebody with so much anxiety and fear that they would just vomit and such. They kind of do it with... Topic kind of does that in one Omniverse episode in Season 6 that I just saw. What was it called again? One moment. I need to see what that was called again. Really fast. One moment. Involved Spanner, so... It was called Cough It Up. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and Cough It Up. Like, they should have played more into that aspect of Topic more. Like, you know, where Topic basically used his sphere powers to make Argent throw up the Tekagon factory or whatever. And I feel like they should have implemented that more. But as it is, Topic's okay, but they could have done so much more with that. So I would say tied with Chameleon, if not just slightly above Chameleon. Astrodactyl! Astrodactyl I would place... Wait, how does this sound? Wait, how's the stream preview sound? That. So I would say... Yeah, okay, that sounds pretty good. So Astrodactyl, I don't like how, like, he has that literal jetpack and such. I would have vastly preferred it if it was more like Jet Ray, and I know I said earlier about powers overlapping and such, but, which I guess does work with Astrodactyl here, but they kind of, like, they could have made, like, something like in, for example, in And Beyond, one moment, yeah, in And Beyond, like, they describe, like, Astrodactyl species having those jetpacks due to, like, them being tied to the digestive systems and, like, stomach, like, some organs or whatever are used to, like, create a gas that shoots Astrodactyl species up into the air. I feel like they should have leaned into that more officially and also utilized, some, maybe, like, make the vents in the jetpack look more organic. That would have really aided Astrodactyl, in my opinion. But again, he still looks more like a humanoid dragon than anything else, and I would say meh, like, but alongside Topek, and you know, if you know what I mean. Bullfrag. I like how Bullfrag was used in the Frogs of War 2-parter, but I feel like they could have... With Bullfrag, I feel like they, could have made him look more like a typical incursion. I think the musculature kind of gives it away a little bit too much in that 2-parter that, oh yeah, it's actually his Ben in disguise. But I still like how he was used in the Frogs of War 2-parter and such. You know, they give him a cool voice and everything. I love the shades. I know he's humanoid, but considering that this is based off a past incursion design and such in a way, I can accept that. I casually like him. He's like the chill, cool dude or whatever. I'd place him around the era similar, roughly tied to like Heat Blaster or Blitzwolfer. That sounds about right. Atomics. Dislike. The only reason he's not in Just No is because I do like the voice they give him. You know, John DiMaggio's delivery there as Atomics. I think that's really cool. You know, it's like, this is Atomics! Basically parodying typical superhero ways of speaking, which is cool, but otherwise he looks more like a robot than an alien. Like, Energy gets that pass because, you know, that's a containment suit, but here, I just can't, I don't really buy it. Similar issues with Clockwork, though again, with Clockwork, that's kind of the point. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, hold on a second, I need to check the other tab there. Oh no, okay, I still got plenty of time to go through this. Okay. Next up, we got Gutrot, who I've only seen his appearance in like Season 5, his debut, but he still does a pretty good job there. His design is like based on the Pokemon Coughing and Wheezing and such. In my opinion, this is a Pokemon-inspired design done right. Mostly. Unlike Shock Squatch, which looks like a Blade and Electivire knockoff in Omniverse, I feel like they mix it up just enough, where ironically enough, I feel like the humanoid look kind of helps that in this case. They could have... I do think that, like... Part of me thinks that, like, they could have... With the suit and such, they could have, like, made it more similar to Energy Suit, actually, where it's like, oh, the hands and such are meant to help him move, and such, like, it's a containment suit, and make him, like, sort of like a gaseous NRG. But I feel like he doesn't, I don't think Gutrot gets a ton of screen time, but I like the gaseous powers he has and such. The voice given is pretty cool and such. I feel like they could have maybe dialed down the suit at the same time a little bit, though. Like, maybe... Or actually, maybe give him bare arms, actually, but, like, keep the rest. But the rest is pretty good. So I would probably place... I'd say... between Wildvine and Spider Monkey, that sounds about right. And finally... Vampire! Sorry to end the stream on a sour note, but I'm going to have to place him in dislike. His design's just too generic to me. Looks like a guy in a suit. I guess I kind of like how he's mixed into the Anur arc and the lore, but that's really more tied to Lord Transil than anything. And like the slight bit of character development Dr. Victor gets, where it's like, I hate these Vladats! I'm not working for you anymore, Sasuke! But otherwise, I just feel like Vampire just feels rushed. And like, they could have done so much more with it. Like, make him look more bat-like. Like, maybe, like, more like an alien bat. Like, hell, I think Jet Ray looks more like an alien bat than Vampire. In fact, I'm going to lower him down, like, below Jury Rig, even. But, yeah. So, that'll do it for ranking my favorite Omnitrix transformations in Omniverse from least favorite to, in terms of favorites. This is like a vague listing as well of them, but yeah. So currently the top 10, my top 10 would roughly be Water Hazard, Forearms, Wrath, Lodestar, Rainstorm, Diamond Head, Ghost Freak, Upgrade, and Cannonbolt. Those are currently my top 10 favorites. Currently, though this is a vague top 10, I guess you could say. And again, putting together a list like this would be pretty difficult itself. Yeah. But yeah, that'll do it for this stream. And I thank you all so much for watching. I'm working on the script for Combofono on my way from home. Once I get back home, I'll be finishing up the dolls and such. And yeah, the next stream will be on Halloween night, I hope, where it'll be Princess Peach showtime, because, you know, costumes, Halloween. I think the connection is close enough. So here's the final ranking, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.